It was an ugly start to the 2024 season for the Cincinnati Bengals. Whose stock is up? And let's be honest, there are a lot of players whose stock is down after that performance against the Patriots. We're going to get to that, reasons for optimism, and much, much more right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller, and we are on Cincinnati Bengals Talk, part of the Big Play Network. Make sure that you check us out right here on CBT every Tuesday at 8 Eastern, weekly on Bally Sports. And when you're doing it, you grab a garage beer or two or three. Shout out to Garage Beer. It's football season, which means it's garage beer season, and it means it's stock up, stock down season, Andrew, because, well, there's a lot of stock ups and stock downs that you can do throughout a football season. But when you lose to a team in the New England Patriots 16-10, a team in the New England Patriots that are more likely to finish with the number one pick than they are of picking in the double digits in the 2025 NFL draft, I have a feeling that we're going to have more stock downs than stock ups. But that's where we start. It's a little stock watch action here on Enter the Jungle. Let's start with the man that is the franchise. Joe Burrow stock is down. That doesn't mean that I'm going to completely write off Joe Burrow or say that he's not right and coming back from that wrist injury is something that he's not going to be able to do. And oh my goodness, press panic. I'm not doing that. But 21 of 29, a buck 64, no touchdowns, even though he should have had one. Mike Gesicki with the drop, Tanner Hudson fumbles at the goal line the following play. Like, those things still happened. And yet the farther removed I get from Sunday, the more simple it becomes. Joe Burrow didn't play well. All of these other mistakes happened. But if Joe Burrow plays remotely close to the Joe Burrow we're used to, the Bengals are 1-0 right now, and they're 0-1, and Joe Burrow stock is down because of it.
That was the first thing I thought of when I thought stock down. There's plenty to go around. But when we talk stock down, I'm like, what is it, 5.7 yards per attempt? Like, that's not going to cut it against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just not. So on top of everything you mentioned, I was not nervous at all heading into week one. And I was always going to be a little nervous heading into week two just because it's such a huge matchup. I'm not feeling confident at all. And I know Joe's feeling confident. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, stock down. Absolutely.
Again, were there some good things? There were. One, Joe gets hit, pops up. No problem doing that. No problem guiding this offense downfield for a touchdown drive to pull within one score. And then they get in field goal range, kick the field goal. And honestly, with just over 2 minutes left, I thought the Bengals were still going to win that game. And that's where my second stock down is, because my biggest issue with Sunday isn't the fact that Joe Burrow didn't look like Joe Burrow, isn't the fact that this run defense couldn't tackle Andrew Fox Miller, let alone a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, who's a borderline Pro Bowl running back. But Zach Taylor, your stock is down too, my man. And it's pretty simple. People are talking about play calling. Throw that out of it. 4th and 5, or just under 2.5 minutes to go, 2:26 left, and you punt. I don't care where the ball is. You have Joe Burrow. It's 4th and 5, 4th and manageable. You can't punt the ball back to the Patriots. You play to win the game. Shout out Dennis Green. I'll say it again. You play to win the game. And so going into that drive, when you get the ball back with just over 3 minutes to go, the only option is to go for it on every 4th down, unless it's 4th and crazy. If it's 4th and 20 in that situation, fine. 4th and 15 from your 5, fine. It wasn't that. It was 4th and 5 from the 15. And if you can't trust Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase in this offense to get it done, your play calling to get it done, well, then you're not going to win many games anyway. So stock down Zach Taylor, and specifically for that reason, because play calling goes up and down, it fluctuates. And I think it was worse this week than most weeks. But man, I hated that decision.
Let me ask you this, because it ties into week two. Same exact scenario, but it's the Chiefs on the other side. What's Zach Taylor doing?
You're going for it.
And I know that Chiefs are not the Patriots. I get that. But I think that's also kind of my point. That's your answer.
Absolutely. No, it's a great point, because, but let's flip it. Do you think the Chiefs, if they're down 16-10, and it won't be 16-10, but if they're down 16-10 at Arrowhead on Sunday with 2:30 left, they're not going to go for it on 4th and 5 with 3 timeouts, 2-minute warning? They'll go for it against the Bengals. You better believe it. They're not giving the ball back to Joe Burrow.
Of course. I think stock down as well, of course. I mean, for all the reasons you just mentioned, I was just perplexed. Because we've been here before. How many times do we start games like this? It's there's a big part of it that's coaching, obviously. And you like you said, we could take play calling out of it, all that. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to call it 4th and 5, you're taking you're taking the ball out of your quarterback's hands. You're relying on your defense. I feel like there was more opportunities to lean into the deficiencies or the strengths that were happening in that particular game, and I just didn't feel those adjustments happening. And that's a stock down.
Yeah, I agree. It was better in the second half, but not good enough. Stock down in both of those scenarios. Some honorable mentions whose stock is certainly down. Tanner Hudson, stock down.
Yeah,
The Bengals' ability to tackle, stock down.
absolutely.
But to me, it begins and ends with the coach and quarterback, man. You had the ball with 3 minutes left, chance to go win. Go win the game. And neither guy played well or coached well in that scenario, made some poor decisions, whether it's Joe not finding Jamar on that first down that's open, all of these scenarios. All right. That's enough negative for now. The Bengals are 0-1. Whose stock is up, Andrew? Who
I
do you
think
have?
this is both of these can be tough. Stock down is so easy because we have expectations and they were not met. Stock up, it's hard to look at a
Yeah.
lot of this game and go, whoa, that exceeded what I expected. If anything, it kind of met it, which to me is a win. You're going to get stock up just for that alone. But Zach Moss, I mean, you do 4.9 yards per carry. It's honestly a shame that they had to or did abandon the run game and lean on, again, Burrow's 5.7 yards per attempt. So he was good. He was efficient. If you can give me that against the Chiefs and give him some more touches, get Chase Brown involved a little bit more, we're heading into week 2. Stock up on the run game.
44 yards on 9 attempts, had a 16-yard run, had the 5-yard touchdown run, was effective. And that's all I want. They were really efficient when they ran the ball. And that's why I want to see it earlier. If they're going to run it, be effective earlier in the game when your offense is so stagnant, when Burrow's clearly out of rhythm and you have those 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game. Maybe the run game can carry you in those type of situations moving forward. I agree, stock up there. Another guy, stock up, Trey Hendrickson, 7 pressures. Jacoby Brissett was under pressure all game, and they couldn't bring him down. And I don't think it's Trey Hendrickson's fault. I think it's everybody around him.
Right.
Bring down the quarterback. They couldn't do that, only sacked him once. And that stinks because that sack was a 1-yard loss on a play where he kind of gives himself up. Dax Hill tags him down. Man, should have had way more, but stock up for Trey Hendrickson because he made an impact even though he didn't have a sack.
I'd say stock up as well. We'll get into him in a bit. Rehkow, great game for somebody that is fighting for a spot on this roster, even though he's on this roster. We all know what's going on with the battle to punting position, but we're now in week 1 and this guy crushed it. More on him in a bit. And I'll briefly say maybe honorable mention. We'll say honorable mention. I'm not going to say strong stock up, but I think the offensive line, all things considered, did well. I mean, they're certainly not to blame. They're certainly not stock down, but honorable mention, stock up offensive line. There were some weak spots and there were some mistakes, but overall, they were formidable.
They were. Cordell Volson, really good. Orlando Brown Jr., very good. I thought Ted Karras was solid. Alex Kappa, sort of up and down, but overall, you look at like the PFF metrics, was good. And Trent Brown just hasn't played a lot of football yet. And so we'll see. Like he was obviously the worst of the 5, but I think he's working into football shape. Big week for him this week against Kansas City. Up next, the Bengals are 0-1. What should we be concerned about the most? What is the biggest worry after an ugly loss to the Patriots? We will get to that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He is Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. This is Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern, weekly on Bally Sports. We're presented by Garage Beer. And man, you might have to crack one open right now, Andrew, because we're getting to our biggest concern. And our biggest concern about this 2024 Cincinnati Bengals season, following an ugly loss to the Patriots, a loss to a team in New England that was projected to win like 3 games. You talk to anyone in New England, they didn't think they had a real shot. I thought the Bengals, even when they played poorly all day long, were still going to win the game. They don't win the game. Joe Burrow struggles. Zach Taylor, stock down. We just did stock up, stock down. Plenty of concerns. The defense struggled. What is your biggest concern following the Bengals week 1 loss?
This is a tough one. I want to say, and we'll call it honorable mention. I really want to say anything from the run defense, pressuring the quarterback, the defensive line in general, tackling, all of that. I do. But I feel
Yeah.
like those things, those blemishes, I think they will be improved upon. I'm not saying they're going to become this, elite tier defense, but what that offense needs to come together and do is step it up a notch. Like what I mean by that is I need the explosive plays, the downfield plays. I have a huge concern right now for whatever is happening where that is my concern of this week. I'm not saying all season long, but right now after what I saw in week 1 and heading into week 2 against the Chiefs, if you cannot feed Jamar, if you cannot make things happen, beyond the sticks, like all of it, I need to see explosive plays, downfield plays against this Chiefs team. Heading into this week, that is my concern.
We're around each other so much, you're starting to speak my language.
Uh-oh.
And it's the offense wins championships language. It's the language that a lot of people probably watching this can't comprehend, can't understand. And the bottom line is, if this team is going to win a Super Bowl this year, the offense has to put up 30-piece, a 30-piece week in and week out. Like that is it. What we're
Yeah.
talking about going to Chick-fil-A, yeah, you can sponsor right now. You're getting a 30-piece nugget because you're a little hungry. That needs to be every Sunday, even when Chick-fil-A is closed for the Cincinnati Bengals. And the 10 pieces don't get it done. And that's what they did this past week. And so how do you change that? It is explosive plays. And my biggest concern is it's simple. It's Joe Burrow. Why did he only throw the ball 3 times with 20 or more air yards in a game that was begging Joe to take it, begging Joe to throw it deep to Jamar on that last drive where he was open on that 3rd and 10? It's something that I'm concerned about. Now, the reason it's the biggest concern, I'm not saying that anything's wrong with his wrist or anything like that. The reason it's my biggest concern is because he's the most important player in the franchise. He's the most important person in the franchise. And so when things aren't right for him, the whole franchise is out of whack. The whole team is out of whack. And so that's why it's the biggest concern. Do I think he could turn it around? Absolutely. And we'll get into reasons why coming up in just a bit. But yeah, Joe Burrow just looking off after a full training camp, not pushing the ball downfield. That has to get better. It just does, especially this week, like you said, because you're going to have to score. Pat Mahomes is going to score. Isaiah Pacheco is going to score. The Chiefs are going to score points this week, and you're going to have to score to keep up with them.
You talk about Burrow and him being the franchise and making that statement, taking those downfield shots or making those, getting the ball in the hands of your playmakers are going to make those explosive plays. To me, that also is what I need to see to know that Joe Burrow has confidence. Whether or not it's a risk, none of that. Like, let's assume he's 100% healthy.
Mhm.
Show me that he's confident, because when he's confident, the team is going to, rally around that. That's his role on this team, among other captains. But if certainly you're the franchise quarterback. So if you're not taking those shots, if you're not proving that you're going to do the very thing that these teams are all of a sudden confident, hey, he's not even going to try to take this shot right now. Do that. Show the confidence. And even if it means short term, show me some creative ways to get the ball in the hands of your playmaker. That didn't even really happen against New England. Just anything it would take to mix things up and get Joe feeling like Joe.
The confidence part is a good point, because even if he can let it rip, if you're not comfortable letting it rip, you're going to hold it just a tick longer. You're going to be a tick late. The timing's going to be a tad off. And then it just looks bad. Like, we've seen it. The good news is, and we're going to get to it coming up next, we've seen this from the Bengals, unfortunately, far too often. And I think that's one of the reasons for optimism. We will get into an optimistic Bengals mindset here as we go into week 2. We'll do that coming up next. Why should Bengals fans feel optimistic going into week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs? We're going to get to that in just a second here on Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. And look, Andrew, it was ugly last week, but it's been ugly in each of the past 3 openers. The Bengals just stink in week 1. And so I guess the reason for optimism, sort of regardless of week 2, because they've lost their past 2 week 2s too. They've started 0-2 in each of the past 2 seasons and are in danger of doing it for a 3rd straight year on Sunday in Kansas City. But they've been here before. They're comfortable with it. Unfortunately, they're back against the wall, season on the line, primetime game week 3. But who knows? Maybe they respond a tick earlier this year. Maybe they go out there against Kansas City and play at a really high level. And I think that's why I'm optimistic just in general. They've been in this position. They've always responded the right way. Joe has been in this position. He's always responded the right way. And so I feel like we should expect that. Even though I'm not expecting a win necessarily on Sunday, I do expect them to play much better.
Yeah, one of the first thoughts I had when we were discussing, let's talk about optimism. And of course, this is counterintuitive, but my first instinctual thought was, could it feel any worse? Could it get any worse? I mean, things can only go up from here. Can't we be optimistic about that? But I think it ties into everything we're talking about here. The easy, lazy way of probably reframing what you just said is, yeah, like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, parentheses, maybe a reason for optimism because they've, to your point, they've been through this before. But like considering that, again, Burrow's no doubt obsessing over this right now. He's gonna do everything he can to course correct. And you have to have optimism that you've got the right person in the right position to be able to step in on that field and make those game time decisions where he can. This is his moment to respond. So I think there's some optimism there. I'll throw in there too. This isn't as nearly as electric or fun, but it is worth mentioning. Hey, offensive line was not the weak spot. That is a reason for optimism. If you're telling me you're going into week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs and they held it together, they looked good, all things considered. If they can maintain that, improve upon that, build upon that, we don't need to worry about the offensive line as much. We just need everything going on behind that line to figure out what they're doing next.
Yeah, I like that. I do because Joe Burrow was pressured, according to Next Gen Stats, the third fewest times in his NFL career, week 1. You take that all day long. And if he's not seeing the field the way he usually does, and it kind of takes him some time to ease into the season, it feels like. And maybe preseason doesn't matter. Everyone's going to say it does. It's vanilla coverages. There's no disguises, nothing like that for Joe. So maybe he just didn't see that. And then he gets into week 1 and it is that. And it's different. And it takes him his computer brain time to process that. I don't know. But we've seen Joe turn it around and he's always showed up for these games against Mahomes. He has. That's the other reason for optimism. It's not like he's played poorly against Mahomes. He's 3-1. And in this Bengals team, even last year with Jake Browning, they gave the Chiefs a fight at Arrowhead. I mean, that wasn't a crazy game. The defense kept it close. They were in it really until the end. And it could be a one-score game but between the Bengals and the Chiefs. And if you're within one score, don't punt it this week and go for the win. That's what you're going to have to do if you're going to sneak out of there, squeal out of there, whatever you want to say, with a win.
Yeah. O-line was good. Throw it in there, mix it in with the fact that run game was good. We said it before, but now teams just need to respect it. But I like where we're situated on that front.
You said mix it in. I'm just going to randomly bring it up. This wasn't scheduled. Joe Mixon balls out for Houston. People feel some type of way about that. What was your reaction?
I mean, he's on the Houston Texans. It's a whole different situation for him than he was. I mean, look, did you see the quantity of carries he was getting? Can you imagine
30?
if he got that quantity of carries in Cincinnati? It just wasn't going to operate that way for him.
No. And that's the right answer. But I was just curious what your thoughts were. Figured I'd throw you a curveball. I agree. Different system. The last time he got 30 touches was the start of the 2022 season, and that's touches, not carries. He got 30 carries for Houston. That's just not how the Bengals are built. The run game wasn't why they lost, and it's probably not going to be why they lose or win on Sunday against the Chiefs. Maybe it'll be why they win because they were pretty effective on the ground. But the Chiefs, they gifted the Bengals a weapon, and you saw that weapon in week 1. We'll tell you who it is coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. And Ryan Rehkow is the newest weapon on the Cincinnati Bengals. And Andrew, you can just thank the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs released Ryan Rehkow. He was just kind of out there. And the Bengals in the middle of training camp, they said, you know what? We have Austin McNamara. We have Brad Robbins, but we really like this Ryan Rehkow kid, this undrafted free agent. We're going to bring him in. They bring him in. He beats out McNamara for the right, essentially, to battle Brad Robbins for the job. He beats out Brad Robbins kind of by default because Robbins gets hurt and Robbins is still on the roster. And now he goes into week 1, no real long-term job security, but is going to play the first 4 games most likely, and he sets NFL records. That's right. Ryan Rehkow set an NFL record for average punt distance in a game, 64 and a half yards per punt, and also has the Bengals franchise record with an 80-yard punt. It happened to be a touchback, bounced into the end zone, like a yard into the end zone. Still a net of 60. Ryan Rehkow, stellar debut.
A slight wind would have made that the best punt I've ever witnessed in real time, maybe ever. Like
Ever.
a slight wind, like the crowd, if they had known that could have, they may have been able to impact it. It was that close, right? that was incredible. I hope we do look back on that as like something big, right? Like as far as a player that is going to make an impact on the team. And by the way, I'm not going to thank the Chiefs for anything, although I will be tested on that perhaps next week. We'll see how the game goes. Maybe I will thank them for something after. I don't know. Maybe something will go our way and I will have them to thank for it, but I'm not going to thank them today. I'll tell you that.
I will just because they gifted you Ryan Rehkow. I mean, they cut him. They shouldn't have cut him. They should have kept him, and they didn't. And that's what they get. But yeah, hopefully he can keep it up because it's just insane. I mean, his first punt, and he's been inconsistent. That's the thing. It's not like
Yeah.
this
There
has
was no
been
signs of this in
consistent.
preseason. I remember.
No, not at all. And we knew he had the leg, and it's paid off. I mean, to this point, and I do think when you have someone with that kind of talent, those kind of skills, working with Darren Simmons, he's going to be able to get the most out of him. He was also the holder on Evan McPherson's 51-yard field goal that he just drilled.
It's huge.
So huge. So big step in the right direction. Going into a hostile environment on Sunday at Arrowhead. We'll see if the rookie punter can continue that. We'll see if the Bengals can bounce back. And we're going to have you covered all week long here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. If you're watching on Bally Sports, check out our YouTube channel, Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Drink a garage beer. For Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. As always, thank you so much for watching. Enter the jungle.